welcome to CEC lectures. Myself Dr. Preeti Jagani. I am from Department of Computer Science, Aribhat College, University of Delhi. So in the previous lecture of this lecture series, which is programming in Java, we have seen a particular program in which we have seen how are we going to create the objects corresponding to a class. Let me begin this lecture with that particular program only, because we will be dwelling into some more details of that particular program. So the program was like this. Let us have a quick recap of that particular program, which says class box. So there is a class box which is having three instance variable, width, height and depth, and all these are of type double, and within that particular file only I have for that example I have written one more class, which is class box demo. Now this box demo is having this main function, and then main within the main function, the first thing which was done is the creation of the object my box, and then assigning the values of my box to the instance my box instance variables, which are mybox.width, mybox.height, mybox.depth, and then after multiplication or with the multiplication of these three variables, volume was actually calculated and printed. So that was the simple program which we were kind of discussing. Now please notice that this program is having two classes. One is the class box, another one is the class box demo. Now let us call this file, or the file which is containing this program, as boxdemo.java. Now why are we naming it as boxdemo.java, not box.java? Because the main method is in the class box demo, not the class box. On compilation of these this particular file or this particular, I can say, .java file, two separate class files have been created. Two separate .class files will be created, one for box and another one for box demo. That means what? That essentially means that Java compiler is automatically putting each class into its own .class file. Even you are clubbing many of the classes into one Java file. After compilation, compiler will put each class into a separate .class file. So after compilation, you can notice in your current directory there will be two .class files. One is box.class, another one will be boxdemo.class. So two separate file for two classes, and actually it is also not necessary for these two classes to be in the same source file. They can have different source files, and you could put each of its class into their own separate file called box.java and boxdemo.java. And in order to run the program, we need to execute which particular class? We need to execute the class which is having main method, which is containing the main method. So in order to run the program, we need to execute boxdemo.class, which can be executed by writing the command java boxdemo. And please be very careful with the case sensitivity. That means the letter B in box and letter D in demo are actually capital, and you need to write it in the same manner, because the language Java is actually case sensitive. And what is going to be the output? The output is going to be the volume, which is nothing but a multiplication of height, width, and the third variable, which is the depth. So 20 multiplied by 10 multiplied by 15, this was something which we have kind of initialized the variables with. So the volume will be kind of 3000. So basically we have seen that class creates a logical framework that is going to define the relationship between the members. Which members I am talking about? I am talking about two type of members here. One is data members, another one is the member function, or I can say methods. Although in this program which we have just seen, we have not used any member function. and when you are declaring an object of a class, you are creating an instance of that class. So basically class becomes a logical construct which is not having memory, but an object is a physical reality or physical concept which is having the memory. And when we talk about the term object, this is actually an entity with the state and the behavior both. So that is kind of it could be a chair, it could be bike, pen, table, banking system, anything it could be, can be physical or can be logical, in the sense it can be tangible or it can be intangible. Now when we talk about the characteristics of object, so each and every object is going to have three characteristics. One is the state, another one is the behavior, and third one is the identity. So as programmers who are coding for in that particular language Java, we are concerned with the state and behavior. So a state of object is actually the data or values of the object, and the behavior represents the functionality of the object. So for example, I can say, and this is represented using the method. So for example, there is an variable which is, let us say, amount, and we want to kind of deposit it or we want to withdraw it. So that is kind of defining the behavior, that is this deposit and withdraw functions are actually defining, representing the functionality of the objects. Now the third characteristic of object is the identity, and object identity is typically implemented, I can say, via unique ID. Now why I have told that as programmer we are only concerned with the state and behavior, because this identity or this unique ID is not visible to the external user or the programmer. It can be used internally by the JVM to identify each object uniquely, and how it is like that we will be looking in a short while. So when we say box and we want to create the instance of that particular class box, so creation of objects of a class is actually a two-step process. In the first step, you must declare a variable of the class type. So we have written box and my box. So my box is a variable of the class box, and this variable, this box my box, is not defining an object. It is simply a variable that can refer to the object, and in the second step you must acquire an actual physical copy of the object and assign it to that variable. Now what does it mean? So for example, we have two statements as in, one is box my box and is equals to new box and followed by parenthesis. So the statement box my box, which could be a separate statement from my box is equals to new box. So first statement is box my box is going to give you a effect which is shown on the screen. That means a my box variable has been created and it is not having any value. So variable here or this my box is actually a reference to the actual box object, which will be assigned in the next step when we say my box is equals to new box. That means now after execution of this second statement, my box is equals to new box, which essentially means that there is going to be an box object, or there is going to be a object of the class box, which is being instantiated with the help of the new operator that is being created, and that is being created in the same manner as your box class is. So it is having width, height and depth, and now your my box reference variable, which was actually we can say empty or null before this statement, now will be having the address of this box object. So when we say, as it is shown on shown in the figure, when we say box my box just, or let us say box A. So this is kind of creation of the variable A or my box of the type box. So here it is not the variable, I can say, you can say here it is an reference, and here this is what a kind of, we can say, a difference from how the objects are being created in C++ and how the objects are being created in Java. So one reference by in the name of my box is being created. Why I am saying this reference as of now? Because it is not having any address. When we say my box is equals to new box, that means a box object will be created, and whatever the address of that box object will be assigned to this my box reference variable, and hence it is going to establish that arrow which is shown on the screen between my box and box object. So actually your my box here is I can say uh, a kind of a reference. So in our program we have seen these two statements in at once, which is box my box is equals to new box, but you can write them in we can say in two separate statements, saying box my box in one statement followed by my box is equals to new box, and this is what the effect it is going to create. Now one thing which is important here is the use of new operator. The operator new, as we all are aware, that it is used for some dynamic allocation, and here the new operator dynamically allocates the memory for that object and returns the reference to it, and then that reference will be stored in the reference variable, which is my box. So the underlying point here is, in Java all the class objects must be dynamically allocated, as we have just seen. So each time we are going to create an instance of a class, we are going to create an object that contains its own copy of each instance variable defined by the class. So for example, I am having this class box, and with this class box I am going to create two objects. One is my box 1 and another one is my box 2. So my box 1 will have its own copy of width, height and depth, which are the instance variable. Similarly, my box 2 also will have its own copies of the instance variables, width, height and depth. And how are we going to use, or how are we going to access these variables? That is simple. We have just seen also by using the dot operator. That is because your dot operator links the name of the object with the name of the instance variable. So for example, in order to assign the width to my box, we will be writing my box dot width and whatever value you want to write. So my box dot width equals to 100, my box dot height equals to 50, and so on and so forth. So by using dot operator we can access both the instance variable as well as the methods which are kind of, we can say, enclosed in an object. Every object has its own copies of instance variable, and let us say with reference to the previous example, if we are taking two box objects, each is having its own copy of depth, width and height, and changes to the instance variable of one object will not have kind of any effect on the instance variable of the another. So in order to demonstrate this concept, let us have a look at an elaborated version of the previous program, in which we have a class box with width, height and depth as the three I can say instance variable. Then we have box demo 2, and what are we going to do here is within the main, please notice the two statements. One is box my box 1 is equals to new box, another one is box my box 2 is equals to new box. That means we have created two objects my box 1 and my box 2. My box 1 is having its own set of variables, which is width, height and depth. My box 2 is also having the similar, similar set of variables, but yes, separate. So, width, height and depth of my box 1 are, separate entities, I can say, and for my box 2 they are separate, and we can access them separately by using the dot operator. For example, my box 1 dot width, or we can say my box 2 dot width. So, continuing with the program, one more variable which is of type double, in which we are going to store the volume, has been defined as VOL, and now we have assigned the different values to the to the instance variables of the different objects, my box 1 and my box 2. So, basically my box 1 dot width, let us say 10, my box 1 dot height 20, my box 1 dot depth 15. When we want to assign different values to my box 2 instance variable, we will be referring my box 2. So, that means my box 2 dot width is equals to 3, or anything you want. My box 2 dot height is equals to 6, and my box 2 dot depth is equals to 9. And how are we going to use them is, for example, VOL is equals to my box 1 dot width, my box 1 dot height multiplied by my box 1 dot depth. So, multiplication of 3 variables, we are going to print that, and we will be computing the volume of the second box, and we are going to write them or we are going to kind of store that volume in the same variable VOL, because one for my box 1 we have already printed the volume. So, now volume will contain my box 2 dot width multiplied by my box 2 dot height multiplied by my box 2 dot depth, and we are going to print it. So, in this program we have seen that we have created two objects of the class box, my box 1 and my box 2, assigned the variables, assigned different value to the instance variables of my box 1 and my box 2. Now, with kind of this whole concept of classes and objects which we have covered in this lecture and also in the previous lecture, we are in a state to differentiate concretely between classes and objects. So, let us have a look. Class, we can say, is actually a blueprint of an object which is used to create the objects, while object on the other hand is the instance of the class, and that we have seen. For class, no memory is allocated when it is declared, but when an object is created, memory is declared. Please mark my words, when object is created. Then a class, we can say, is actually a group of similar objects. Object is actually kind of, it is a real world entity. It could be a book, it could be car, and we have also seen that these real world entities could be tangible or intangible, like book, car, these are tangible quantities, or kind of a university system or a banking system is actually an intangible entity. Now, class, because it is not having memory of its own, it is a logical entity, while the object is having memory of its own. So, it is a physical entity, we can say. Class can be declared once we will be declaring the class, as we have done class box, and then we have created many objects, and object can be created many times as per the requirement. So, in our first demonstrative program we have created object only once, and then kind of we can say within the second program we have created objects twice of that particular class box, but in both the scenarios the class was declared only once. So, taking an example, although we have seen the situation as box as the class, and then my box 1 and my box 2 as the objects of the class, in order to provide you more kind of clarity, we can say an example of the class, let us say car is an example of the class, and the objects of those class can be BMW, Mercedes, Ferrari. So, we have to be very clear between the distinction of the class and objects. Class, no memory is allocated, while objects are having the memory, and on the basis of this memory facts, I can say the class is a logical entity while object is a physical entity, because object is having its own physical existence. While object is an instance of the class, class is the blueprint of the object. Now, one thing which is also very remarkable here is this is something different from how we create, objects in the language C++ or in, kind of we can say other languages. One thing which is noticeable here is the use of new operator, and when we compare the creation of objects with the creation of variables of primitive data type, there is a solid difference. That means when we say integer a, that a is being assigned a memory, and value we will be assigning by the next statement saying a is equals to 10. But when we say integer a, that a is having memory, but this is not happening in case of objects. When we say box, my box 1, this my box 1 is not having any kind of, we can say, is not being assigned any memory of the object as of now, it is just a reference variable. And when we say my box 1 is equals to new box and then the parenthesis, that at that point of time an object of the box is being created and the address of that box object is assigned to the reference variable, which is my box. So, this is kind of, we can say, different from allocation of or creation of normal primitive data types, because primitive data types in Java are not created kind of dynamically using the new operator, but objects are to be created using the new operator in Java, and these objects are real world entities, while class is actually a group of similar objects. We can say a logical entity, objects is having is physical existence. With one class declared once, many objects can be created as per the requirement. So, in this lecture what we have seen that towards the end of the lecture we covered the difference between classes and objects, but when we started with the lecture we have seen the detailed nuances that how these objects are created, what are the characteristics of objects, and how these objects are connected to the classes. And then we have seen the details of the two programs, in which the first program we have only created one object, while towards the second we have created two objects of the same particular class, and those programs we have seen in quite detail. Here is a list of references which is being used for the preparation of lecture. Hope you have enjoyed one. I will see you in the next lecture. Till then, take care. Goodbye.